freedom marches and the March on Washington. In March of 1962, black Americans, as we've talked about, were facing unemployment and poverty on a much larger scale than they ever had before. It led to the idea of marches for jobs and freedom, various marches around the country, but the biggest one was Washington. In 1962 and 63, there were hundreds of demonstrations. In 63 alone, they had over 900 demonstrations in more than 100 cities, with over 20,000 people arrested. But the biggest one was in Washington in August of 1963. The march was planned very carefully because they didn't want it to turn into a riot. People marching set off from all over the country. Where they couldn't get to Washington, D.C., they had their own symbolic march at the same time in their own city. The march was very effective in bringing civil rights to the public's attention. The marchers met at the Washington Monument just before dawn on August the 28th, 1963. At 11:30, when all the seats were filled and all the people had filed in, like on this photograph, Martin Luther King made his famous I Have a Dream speech.
I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream.
In his speech, King talked about the desire where blacks and whites should live together, just in that quote. He highlighted the importance of non-violent resistance, and he talked about this dream, this promised land where he was moving towards, and what he could see this happening and see this coming, but he knew there was a lot of work still to do.
When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
This speech captured the feelings of the day and provided a vision for the future of which black and white Americans could look towards. This speech was played over and over again. The US President John F. Kennedy decided to meet with the leaders of the freedom marches and did congratulate them on their successes. This was a huge triumph for the organisers. The American nation, North and South, now had to accept that the position of black Americans was going to change and change forever. Unfortunately, less than 3 weeks later, 4 young girls were killed when a bomb exploded in a church in Alabama. There was race riots in Birmingham, Alabama, and by the end of that day, 2 more young people had been killed. Martin Luther King spoke at the funerals, where 8,000 people turned up. No city officials came, no policemen, nothing. This was the South's last attempt at fighting back. What the bomb actually did was intended to stop integration, stop desegregation. What it actually did was turn moderate people who might have been anti-black now completely on the side of equality and freedom.